Get Gutsy episode number 93 with Andy Hayes on You'll See It When You Believe It. Welcome to Get Gutsy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennig, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. A cutting-edge show blending business and spirituality, Get Gutsy serves up a potent blend of stories, lessons, and tips to help you make a massive impact in the world through your soul's work and your inspired life. No more going it alone, no more excuses. The world needs more brave women saying yes to leadership. Are you with me? Good. Let's get gutsy now. Hey everybody, welcome back to Get Gutsy. Jenny here. So excited to be with you for another fantastic episode of the show. You know, I have to admit, since I started the podcast in November of 2015, even though we were starting the production on it several months prior to that, we launched in November of 2015, and it has been, just such a wonderful ride. There are times when my business gets more full, and sometimes keeping the podcast going feels like, more work than when I have specific space carved out to really focus on it. But I am so happy that I have, and that we've committed to offering this up to our tribe of, spiritually driven entrepreneurs and business leaders out into the world, because you have the opportunity to hear from leaders, to have interesting people out there who are creating. You are creators. And today I have an amazing creator and visionary on the show. His name is Andy Hayes, and he is passionate about something that I am passionate about, and I think he's probably way more passionate about it than I am, because he's made it his livelihood, and it's tea. Those of you who really know me know that I don't drink coffee. I have nothing against coffee. It just doesn't work for me. It's too much for my system. So I'm a tea girl. And Andy Hayes, he's into tea too. Let me tell you about him. We're going to dive right in. Andy is a tea aficionado and advocate for self-care and first-class living. He believes that to live a life you love, you have to focus on creating moments that matter. Based in Portland, Oregon, he is the founder and creator of Plum Deluxe Teas. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Wow, thank you so much. I am humbled by your amazing introduction. I'm going to have to hire you to start just going around introducing me wherever I go.
I do have a knack for this, I have to say. But when you find someone who's a tea drinker and a tea lover, there's this little connection, because it feels, Andy, like so much of the world is into coffee, and I just can't go there with people because I'm not a coffee girl. You know what I'm saying?
The tea people have a vibe.
Yeah, what is our vibe? What makes a tea person a tea person?
Well, I think the defining characteristic is slow. Tea people are not afraid to stop. Tea cannot be rushed. We haven't figured out a technology that would enable us to steep tea for seconds as opposed to minutes. So I think that's the defining characteristic, is tea people know when it's okay to not be in a hurry.
Oh, I have never heard it said that way, and now I'm even more proud to be a tea drinker. I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Own it, Jenny.
I am going to own that. I am going to own that. We're not afraid to stop and steep and pause. That is gorgeous. So how did you get into tea, Andy?
Well, like most good things, tea found me. I didn't find the tea. So if I just take you through the arc, it's a great story. My background is technology, so I have 2 degrees. I have a BS in information science, and I also have an organizational leadership degree, which I love throwing out because it just sounds cool. It sounds really sexy.
I like that.
I actually, when I was in university, I thought it was kind of a ridiculous thing, a waste of time. But I actually find that those skills are very useful, because they taught you things that I find when I move in the world people don't know how to do, and I just think, well, that's so useful. An agenda for a meeting, how to run a meeting, how to be organized with your calendar. This was the stuff they were teaching, and it seems so silly, but man, people need this stuff. So I have these 2 kind of random degrees and set out in the world to be, technology superstar. And I really liked big technology projects because I liked, and I've come to understand that my zone of genius is in putting the pieces together. I like to see the big picture and understand how different things come together. So I was grew up in the United States, but when I started my career, I moved to Europe. And so I lived in Amsterdam for quite a long time doing these big technology projects, having an amazing time. I managed these huge teams. I had, I think at one point, 25 people that reported to me who represented 20 different countries.
Wow.
And people really wanted to work for me because I embraced that challenge as a strength. So I would require people who worked for me to tell us when their national holidays were and how to celebrate them. So there was always a cake or always some kind of weird parade or balloons or something strange going on in my part of the office. But it was fun. We just had a good time.
Why were you driven to go to Amsterdam?
I was just driven to get as far away from where I started.
Where did you start?
I grew up in the Midwest, and I felt like I just knew that the world was more expansive than what I could see. So I was just driven by a need to be overloaded by my senses. I just knew there was more. I wanted to understand what my place was in the world. I wanted to figure out who I was. I just feel like I didn't have an opportunity growing up to really understand that. And I tried. When I graduated from high school, there was 30 people in my class.
Wow.
And I went to a college campus with 60,000. So I tried. I was really pushing. That was my driving factor. I wanted to be in a place where, I could eat Japanese food and learn Italian and
totally
and get an organizational leadership degree. That was not on the list, but you can kind of see how I was thinking. I was just thinking if I could be exposed to a lot of new things, then maybe I would really understand, what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. And I was still on that kick. I just hadn't had enough of it. So I just said, to the universe, I wanted to go far. I wanted to be dazzled. I wanted to see things I couldn't even believe were there. And sure enough, a job opportunity popped right up. And so that's right where I went. And it's funny, I don't have a Dutch connection. My mother's family is all German. So, I didn't even have kind of that lingual aspect of it. But
it didn't stand in your way. You were able to go there with just English speaker.
Yeah, I loved living there. It was really easy to get started there.
I've been to Amsterdam. And I bet that would be a lot of fun, straight out of college too.
It was.
Yes,
it
yeah.
Was.
It's just a lot of open-minded thinkers and creatives and artists.
Yeah, and then from a business perspective, it's a country that is very open and welcoming to foreigners.
Okay.
So it's a great place to be in that aspect as well. There's a lot of English-speaking, British and American entrepreneurs there. So yeah, I feel like it was a really great place to land.
And how long were you doing your thing there?
At almost 10 years. Unfortunately, it came to an end with the European banking crisis. So my job disappeared. And my company was split into 3, and my section went to the United Kingdom. So I was given a choice. I could move to Britain, to Edinburgh, Scotland, with a job, or I could stay here and not really know what would happen. And my team and we decided together that we would go because we thought, why not? And I thought, wow, English-speaking country, that would be, something exciting, kind of easier maybe. So I went for it. We all decided we would, because it was, in Europe, employees have a lot more rights. So you could decide, I don't want to go, put me on unemployment or put me somewhere else. So off we went. And I quickly found myself in a work environment that was very much not my style. I even had a project manager that I work with one day sat me down and said, you really should leave this job because it's just going to kill you. And he really meant it. And the thing was, it was a very aggressive, competitive, combative, fast-paced working environment. And I am kind of the opposite of all of those things.
Yes, you're a tea drinker.
Tea drinker, team player. I like collaboration. I like community. I like to take thoughtful action.
Okay.
So this, and I say all that, but this was really the extreme. I mean, people would be off ill all the time because they would be bullied by their managers. There would be fights in the office. I mean, it just seems like things that sound ridiculous.
Right. You look back and you're like, what was that? I can't even believe that happens, but it does. Yeah. And so did you take the advice of this project manager?
Well, I was stuck because I felt as if I was not responsible enough for myself to leave. I just felt like I didn't have anywhere to go. So I just kind of stayed stuck. And I finally, and I experienced a lot of health issues because of that. I had a lot of migraines. I would pass out, I would just kind of faint randomly. Wow. It's not something I would recommend. It's kind of troublesome.
Yes.
So one day I finally had a wake-up call, and I wouldn't say there was a specific trigger. It was kind of one of those, just it built up till one day. You wake up in the morning and you just think, what the heck is going on here? This is not okay. And I finally decided that that staying here in this work environment that made me ill was a bigger risk than the unknown. And I got out of there. I made my exit plan, and I got out.
How long did it take you to quit? When you had that realization, was it that day? Was it a month later?
It took, probably about 7 weeks, I would say.
Okay, so just under 2 months.
Yeah, it wasn't money. I had been saving money. It was more kind of just buttoning up the hatches.
Yeah,
what happens with your insurance? Can I still go to my dentist? That kind of
life stuff. Okay, so you made the decision, then you made the leap.
Yeah, but and I found out that all of my health problems were psychosomatic because the day later they all disappeared and I've never seen them again.
Which is so I'm laughing, even though I'm when it was in it, it was intense. But it's kind of for those people who, especially you were in a corporate life like I was, and I tend to attract a lot of those into my community because we're a certain breed. We're like, oh my God, you think you're your dream job and it's fabulous, and you're working with these great clients, big budgets, teams, fabulous. But then you realize you're getting sick by actually staying in that environment. And for a lot of people, they don't leave their corporate job because they're like, oh, I'm going to but the insurance, you stay for the insurance. But then you realize the only reason you need the insurance is because you're working there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can get insurance when you are self-employed, when you have your own business. There are other ways around that, but it's one of these kind of hypocrisies that exists, and why a lot of people make themselves sick in these very unhealthy, toxic work environments. So very, very interesting. And so all of your symptoms went away, your issues went away as soon as you left that, which is basically a sign from the universe. It was like warning signs, like red flags. Andy, get out. You've taken a wrong turn. Get out.
Yeah, and I was totally not paying attention.
Well,
so here's the interesting thing. So I leave, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I kind of sit around thinking what should I do? But the universe was kind enough to present all of these great opportunities for me. So right away, I was living in Edinburgh, Scotland. It's not a huge town by business means. So people knew who I was. People knew I had this experience. The company that I had, the two companies that I worked for were pretty well known. A lot of the work that I had done was really well known. So I started picking up kind of these, consulting gigs. And I'd say yes because I thought, well, I don't know what else to do. Why not? It's here. You kind of just say, oh, sure, I'll do that. It'll give me some time.
Right.
So I say yes, and I say yes, and I say yes to these various, projects that make an appearance. And sooner or later, Jenny, and this is where I should have had you in my little coaching realm, because you would have said, don't do this. I accepted all these projects, and I started working with people that were kind of like this, people I left behind. And I started taking on as many projects as possible just to fill the space, because I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to put in the empty space. I was avoiding trying to figure out what the long-term game plan was. And for me, when I look back on it, what I was really doing was just becoming a really bad boss to myself. I was becoming that crappy manager that made people sick. So one day, and again, I didn't have a specific trigger for this. It was just kind of a realization one day. Wake up, I just see all of these kind of annoyed emails. I feel so annoyed with these projects. And I just think this is not why I made this huge leap. This was not why I did that. There has to be something better. So I decided to make huge life change again. Huge life change. I'm going to leave Scotland because, for some practical reasons. I felt like it was really, expensive, and I'd moved there because of job. I didn't move there because I liked it. So, I was like, West Coast, I'm out of here. Bye. Sorry, not sorry. And I took some time to really sit and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a good boss to myself. I wanted to have a business that I would be proud of, a business that I would feel excited about talking about on a podcast. And that was really hard. That was probably the hardest thing I've done. I still had to take on, projects here and there because, you have to pay the bills.
Yep.
But I was trying to be really careful about, I would take things that would only last a certain amount of time.
Yep.
Or take things that were for people that I really admired or appreciated or felt like they were doing good work. Holistic healers or yoga instructors, people that I felt like if I could help them with my technologies background, then I would be doing good in the world, and that would be okay for now, right? Eventually I need to help myself, but to pay my mortgage or my rent, this would be the good deal. So I had a defining moment that was really difficult, but it actually helped me figure out what I was supposed to do. So my mother, whom I think in total it took about 6 years, but she had been fighting a really difficult battle with breast cancer. And when she passed, it was the first time as an adult, I was just thinking about this the other day, it was the first time as an adult that I was really experiencing loss. As a kid, you see people pass away, like maybe a grandparent or, your mom's friend or, your neighbor.
Yep. And
you see these things, but you don't really process them. You don't really understand what these funerals mean and why do we have to dress up, and it seems kind of dark, and why is there a person in the casket? That's kind of gross. You have this kind of weird feeling.
Yeah.
But you don't really get it. And this was the first time in my life that kind of profound loss, it really shakes you up. It was it really kind of rattles the ground you're under. And what I took away from that, to focus on the positive, was how those 6 years really had changed her life for the better. They were difficult, but she was the human being that I remember her as a kid. I remember growing up, and I know as an adult now that we had no means. We had food stamps. We did not have enough money for everything. But as a kid, I would never have known that, because there was always something going on that made it feel like the world was an abundant place, that the world was kind and gentle. So it was always like a surprise, even though it came from Big Lots and it was $1. Or going out and treating ourselves to, the pumpkin spice milkshake at the local ice cream place because it was on sale.
Right.
That kind of thing. So when my mom got cancer, I feel like it was her wake-up call to be like that best version of herself that she had forgotten. And so she created this wolf pack of friends that they were off hiking on the weekends and doing these races. They went out and had potlucks all the time. She dyed her hair. She was living an amazing life, even though she had this other part that wasn't so good. And I thought, well, if anything I can take away from this is that lesson. That's a really powerful reminder. And I decided that the kind of And the thing is all this time, this whole entire time, I was blogging, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write books. I wanted to have my own magazine. So I was blogging the whole time, and I was just blogging about all kinds of stuff. I'd blog about travel. I'd blog about food. I'd blog about mindset. Blog about health. I just kind of, I just blog, because that was another way I thought, if I just write enough, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Was what my thought was on that. So I had this big reinvention of my business, and I said, you know what? The thing that I'm really here to talk about is that. How do we infuse in our life the things that make it amazing, that make it feel like a good life? What does that look like? And so that's where Plum Deluxe came around. I picked a name that was cool. It had kind of interesting story behind it. Plums are a mystical fruit from ancient China, and they thought it was a lucky charm. And the old English word plum means something lucky, like a plum job, oh, Jenny, like that was a real plum opportunity, it's something magical that you didn't expect. So Plum Deluxe, and I really started talking about these, life lessons. How do we wake up and realize that the opportunities for having a good life that we want are right in front of us? And I quickly learned that that's kind of a hard ask for people, because when I say to you, Jenny, how do you live a good life? When you die, what would you say made it a good life? And it's a big question, and it's hard to get your head around. But what I realized quickly was I could ask people, I could say, Jenny, what does it mean for you to have a really good morning? Or what does it mean for you to have a nourishing good evening or night? And then we get into real specific things like, I like this ritual, and I like these activities, and I like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like when this happens. And so that's where the whole thing about creating moments that matter came from, is my way to break down life into these smaller pieces that we can get our heads around.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So to close the story, this very long arc, thank you for indulging me, because I feel like a great story. I had a hard time monetizing this opportunity, because I think, again, I wasn't sure. I think for me, when I really started talking about these concepts, my fear is I didn't want to be seen. I think I was a little afraid to really say what was on my mind. It was like, oh, I don't want to be too spiritual, and oh, I don't want to be too woo-woo, and oh, I don't want to be too, lovey-dovey, and
right.
I kind of hid behind that. But I'm not afraid of that anymore. But I tried a lot of different models for our business. We had sponsorships in the beginning, which was fine, but it just wouldn't pay the bills. And then we had a lot of affiliate relationships, promoting other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And that was okay, but it just was too difficult. And I did curated events, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done. But that people did like that. And
Tell
then
us
at the
more
end,
about that. What are curated events?
Well, I would do an Oregon wine night, and you would get this bag full of deliciousness to take home with you. And I would get up in front of the small group and talk about some of the magic behind the wines that we picked and how we created the menu. And I would have the chef come out, and I would get the winemaker to come. And so you would just hear all these interesting stories about what's behind a simple meal.
And then how did the tea, how did your tea story get in there?
So I had those events, and they were really hard because I had to fill butts and seats, and also the sponsors and the bags and the venues. A lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts. And they weren't profitable enough to have an events manager.
Yep.
So I said to I've had a few people who've been with me over the years just helping me do social media or writing. So I said to my little team, I said, guys, this is just not going to work. And I'm really tired. I'm really tired of trying all these things. And this is the last go. This is my last hurrah. And if I can't get this next thing to work, I'm probably not going to keep moving forward. But I said, we're going to have our own product. Because people had told me over the years that they really wished Plum Deluxe had their own things, because they would buy them.
Got it.
Yeah. So one day I sat down and I said, okay, what making moments that matter? What product would fit that? And I thought, it's so obvious. Why didn't I see it? Tea would be perfect. Tea fits moments, right? Because we pair tea with different moments. You have a different tea first thing in the morning than you would at night. And tea fits my strength because it's about putting the pieces together, about seeing how the different things come together.
Mm-hmm.
So the second that I had that epiphany, things changed really quickly for me. I found a mentor who had a tea company. She is actually a friend of the person that does our social media. I asked her for help, and she said, absolutely, I will mentor you. I will help you be successful.
Wow.
I'll do whatever you need to help you get going, because I know what you have worked on over the years, and I want to help you. So she helped me get started, and the second that I put that out into the world, it was like a runaway success. Like I could not keep up with it.
With the orders.
I remember the orders. I remember the first day I started on a 2 foot by 2 foot table. That was my whole production facility. I had an old box, like a wine box, with the little dividers that I put all the little bags in to keep everything separated.
Yep.
I remember my first tea club. They were all purple envelopes, and I laid them all out on the floor and taped all the, the labels. Didn't have like the machine, with the sticky back labels. Had to tape them all on, and then line them up and fill them. It started off really small, but really quick. But it just grew so fast that it's kind of been my focus for the last few years is just really staying ahead of it. Really thinking about how do we source and how do we run an operation that is thoughtful and with intention? How do we really delight people in a way that they wouldn't expect? And it's really turned into is what I was seeking all along, was my own community, my own place where we could have these kind of thoughtful conversations. So people buy tea or they join our tea subscription, but they stay around because people are supporting them in their intentions. People are sharing with them insights that are helping them with their own challenges.
How do you all nurture that community? Do you have an online space for that? If they're in I know you have this Tea of the Month club, like where do you then nurture the community online? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, it started out with a Facebook group.
Okay.
That people have to be a customer to get into.
Yep.
That's been the primary place. Love or hate Facebook. Everybody has an account.
It works,
so
we use
easy.
that a lot in my business, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And I've done different ones. I considered using a different platform. I have this high level mastermind experience that I lead, and I was going to use a different platform. And then as it got close to, I go, why? Facebook is it. And there's different ways that you can have your settings where it would be, secret or private or open or close. It really is I'm so grateful for Facebook. That's interesting to hear that you're using it too. Yeah.
Me too. But then we have a lot of people who aren't on Facebook much. So we started doing tea swaps. So every quarter we set up a exchange, so people send each other little care packages. And like in the summer, it's just a postcard, and you have to send someone an inspirational message that you think they need.
That's cute.
And what's really amazing, I'm really grateful that the universe somehow has all this figured out. People always get what they need. Like people just seem to always have these interesting synchronicities.
Tell us more about how that works. Like how do you, logistically, how do you create that? How do you get everyone's addresses? And because that sounds really fun.
It's really fun. But it's work. We don't have to do that, but we do it because of what it produces.
Yep.
So we have a database of everyone, right? So I'm in the middle. And so you have to opt in. And so I curate all the themes. So I always pick a theme. I tell people, what's the intention here? So we just passed the summer one, and it was just a postcard with a message you thought the other person could need. And so all you got, say you signed up, Jenny. So you would sign up and you would just give me, this one was really easy. You just had to give me your address, like where you would be for the summer.
Yep.
But maybe say it was a care package. So I think the one that will have just happened when this airs was a care package. Mm-hmm. So you'll give me your address, and then you'll say, I'll ask you, Jenny, do you drink caffeine? Mm-hmm. So the other person knows if they should kind of avoid that.
Right.
And then I'll leave it really open, and it'll just say, does your swap partner need to know anything else? And some people will say, I had said this happened, I'm having a hard time, or surprise me, or I share my tea with my 7-year-old daughter every night. Mm-hmm. So just like maybe a clue. And then I sometimes curate them. I think about how to connect people. Other times it's just random. It's just like this postcard, whoosh, just random, just swap them up. And then I send it back out. So Jenny, you get an email from me that just reminds you of the rules, like what's happening here, and then you get the address.
For your partner.
And yeah. And then we ask people to share. So email us a photo of what you got.
Cute.
Just so we know, or post it in one of the groups so we know that it happened. But we'd also like to see, if you have a little story behind it.
Do you all use Instagram too? Like, I would feel like that might be a good platform for you.
We do use Instagram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, and then this year we really expanded our horizons, because now that things have continued to grow so quickly, we have a little more momentum. So at the beginning of the year, we opened up a Ravelry group, and Ravelry is a website for fiber arts folk, knitting, crochet. So we have a lot of people in the group that do knit-alongs, and so we created a group so that they could all connect. And then this fall, we now have a Goodreads group, and we do book recommendations every month, because I read a lot, and we have a lot of librarians in our group. So we decided that the book people needed their own space. So
and do they have to be customers to be part of these groups, or is it, how does that work?
They do not.
Okay, just fans of the tea. They know about your tea. Maybe they've never purchased anything, but they're just part of your community.
Yeah.
Okay, but your Facebook group, they need to be customers.
That's right. That's the only one where we...
Got it. The other ones are really like you're helping, you're part of that conversation, you're developing community on there. I mean, some definitely are customers, but perhaps not all of them. Okay.
Yeah, the way we think about it, because from the very beginning, I've been sending out a weekly newsletter.
Yep.
It's every Sunday morning.
Yep.
And the way that's kind of the primary way people engage with our brand. And the way I think about these things is, in that sending newsletter, is that something I would include as something else for them to really feel nourished? Or is it something that is part of the deeper community that, I want you to, pony up for? I want you to take some action for.
Right.
And so, crafting along is really fun and really lighthearted. So no, people don't really need to have to be a customer for that.
Right.
The books, I feel like the best way to, grow yourself is to read. And so I read a lot, and I'm stoked to have that group. So I don't mind sharing that either.
Mm-hmm. And but those groups, like, they exist, like, because I know Goodreads, like, the groups exist within the Goodreads platform.
They do, yeah. So we're maintaining those outside of our own stuff. It's just like the Facebook. It's just another
platform for connection.
Another platform for connection. Yeah.
Yep, I see.
And we find that they feel better and provide more for the community than like trying to get the Facebook algorithm to cooperate or building our own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. I mean, it's just something that, you're doing for the community, and it always has an effect. It may not be immediate, but when you're in it for the long game, and you also know what you've got to do for the short-term wins, because you have to have short-term wins in the business. It can't just only be long game. And I know a lot of our listeners need to hear that, because we all have these missions in the world, and I think what you learned, Andy, is that you had to figure out like how your mission tied into a business, like a real business, and that's mission critical. It's something that I've been very much focusing on over the last few months in the messaging that I'm putting out into the world, because I think for a lot of people, they kind of like did what you and I did, Andy, which was to like quit the corporate job because it was making us sick. And then you're like, I'm out. Okay, I'm out. And that solves one of your problems, but then you got a new set. Which is, now what do I do with all this free time on my schedule? And you got to figure out what you love to do. And so for a lot of us, you're a light worker, Andy. I'm a light worker. Our listeners, they're light workers. We're healers. We're putting out positive messaging in the world. We want to make the world a better place. That's awesome. And specifically, what is it that we do in business? What do we sell? What are people buying from us? Because just the positive messaging is only going to take us so far. We have to have actual things that people can buy, whether they'll be services, products, what have you. And so I really appreciate you kind of sharing the way that you got there, and then how you finally stumbled upon this tea. Tea being that combination of everything that you loved. I love your story about your mother, and I know that she's so proud of you. I too was touched by cancer. My sister died of cancer. She was a young girl, and you're right. Death shakes us up, and the upside of death for those of us who have been touched by it. You were an adult when your mom died. I was a kid. I was a kid when my sister died. I was a teenager. And what I have found is that our ability to just go through the motions, that fucking ends. Like that's out. Like that is out of here. You can fool yourself for a bit. You can try to numb or run, which I very much did for a long time. And then when you finally realize, okay, I'm exhausted, I can't keep running, and I can't keep numbing, then you can't just go on autopilot. You can't ignore the call of your soul. You can't ignore the fact that you, Andy, are going to die. I, Jenny, am going to die. All of you listeners out there, you're going to die. It's going to happen. The big mystery is when. When is it going to happen? I hope that we all have long, prosperous, abundant lives where we do all these things that we want to do. We spend time with the people who we just care about so much, but we never know. And so I hope, Andy, I know today your story has just jazzed people up to say, what do I really want to do? I'm in this environment right now. It's making me sick, or I'm like playing around in this business, and I'm having a good time, but like what happened with you when you said to your team, this is the last hurrah. Like if this doesn't, because that's the reality of it. I just had a call with some of my coaching students, and I'm like, listen, unless you all are just independently wealthy, you're living off of a trust fund and inheritance, like it just doesn't matter to you. You have a significant other and they, make all the money, and you can just kind of hang out and do your thing, and making money isn't essential. It's not something that has to happen in the foreseeable future or ever. Then you do need to figure out how this enterprise is going to be turning over revenue, bringing in money, because that is the point of a business. You can't call yourself a business owner if you're not willing to figure that one out. And so thank you, Andy, for figuring that one out. I love. So now where can people buy your tea? Like where can they check out what you've got?
Yeah, we only sell from our website, which is plumdeluxe.com.
Okay.
We run a online shop there. We have a lot of different teas and seasonal teas, and then we experiment with other products. For example, 4 times a year we do a plum box. It's a mystery box full of surprises. We do, in the summer, we have t-shirts. We have right now, I think, some conversation starter cards. I try to really push the limits of how far I can get from tea.
Yeah.
with the spiritual woo-woo messaging. So we have a lot of fun with that. The tea club, which I have to say in the beginning was not my intention. I didn't think that the tea club would be so big. Mm-hmm. It's by far our main thing, is our main gig.
It's your main, it's your biggest source of revenue?
It's for sure, absolutely.
Okay.
The way I set it up, maybe this is useful for people. So in the beginning, what I like to do, I like to create. I like to experiment. I like to try different things. Mm-hmm. That's probably why I got far enough along with all my different experiments.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do, because once I got into the tea, once I really understood tea making and the recipes and what that was like, I realized that it really filled, a part of my soul that was like desperate for, a drink of hot tea.
Right.
So I thought, well, the tea club would be amazing. I would really enjoy that because then I could create something for people every month. I could just be creating, and if it wasn't a total success, it would be gone the next month. We'd be on to something else.
Yep.
So I like that aspect. Some people would not like that because that would feel like a ball and chain, but I liked it. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I set it up, and I was thinking of it more like an Amazon Prime subscription.
Got it.
So people would buy in and get all of these benefits, a surprise tea made just for the club. They would get free shipping. They would get, these discount codes. They would get discounts on events if we did events again. So that was my plan. Mm-hmm. And everyone just sort of gravitated right towards that. And I think maybe just because how much fun I was having with it, how much, I really liked that part. Mm-hmm. But we still have, we never get rid of it. We have a huge store where we have things that you can just try. Mm-hmm. Or if you only like Earl Grey, you can just get that, Mm-hmm. And that we're still even now filling gaps. We have a lot of product gaps, and it's just one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Just filling in the gaps. Mm-hmm. But like I said in the beginning, tea people aren't in a rush. So I just take my time and really think about, here are two powerful questions that I think about all the time. Mm-hmm. Is what does my community need right now? And then my other question is, how could my community help me right now? Mm-hmm. So we're in cahoots. We help each other out, and I know that people were really digging the connections and really craving more of that. So we really spent a lot of time looking at Goodreads or these swaps, or how do we really make sure that those are in the best version possible. But then a smaller portion wanted more selection, so then now we're working on that. That's that's priority 2, and that's what's our focus now. So.
Mm-hmm. I love those questions. What does my community need right now, and how can my community help me right now? The give and the take. Yeah,
because people want to be part of something.
They do.
Successful, and so if you let's get realistic. Here's an example. I was just talking about, we have a lot of librarians, and I'm big about literacy. As a kid, I really liked books and I really liked reading, and I feel like that's part of why I'm successful.
Yep.
So I have asked the librarians, I really want to increase my, charitable giving and my work in philanthropy over the long term. Mm-hmm. As a librarian, how can I do that? How can I do that in the short term that still has a commercial aspect, like sponsoring fundraisers, or just working with an individual library or individual associations, but in the long term, what do libraries need? Mm-hmm. And I get, these 5-page long emails with links and research and comments. So they want to help people. I think there's a kind of a universal spiritual teaching that is, people genuinely as human beings want to help other human beings. Mm-hmm. But in a specific sense, if you're part of a community, if people are part of a tribe, they want it to be successful. They've already opted in. So they will help. And even if it's just the tiniest little thing, or just an encouragement that says, yeah, Jenny, that's a great idea. Please do it. Please do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know our listeners, I'm doing this because I've identified as being a leader of my tribe, and then I attract other leaders. And so a lot of the world, they don't really want to be maybe a leader. They'd rather be a part of something. And so when you have said, yes, I will handle it, we will make this happen. I will pull together resources, right? I'll have this company. We'll get the Tea of the Month Club going. We'll get the Goodreads thing going. We'll do all that. They're so grateful because not everyone is wired to be an Andy or a Jenny or whoever you listening out there, whatever your name is, no one else is you. And so when you step up into leadership, that was my genesis of this show, was I wanted to have a show for leaders, for those who identify also as being spiritually driven. Like, we're not afraid to be woo-woo. We're not afraid to get quiet and go slow and talk to source and, trust these downloads that we get and quit our job, even though people say we're nuts, or you get that message from an angel or guide. That person who you worked with, Andy, that project manager, that was a guide. That was a guide placed on in your path, and you chose to listen, which was really intelligent of you. And I'm just so happy that you've experienced the success that you have and that you're building what you're building. Obviously, tea is a piece of your spiritual practice, but could you just, as we round out this episode, tell us more about what your spiritual practice, like what that is to you and how that fuels you?
Yeah, I'm a bookender, Jenny. So I'm very particular about how I start and end my day. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of keeps me sane. Mm-hmm. I also feel like my Pilates practice is my spiritual practice. But,
yes.
So in the mornings, I, of course, tea, sometimes coffee. I'm an equal opportunity beverage person, actually. So, I can kind of, if I'm out and about, especially if I'm out and about, because I have my teas and, I kind of just am really like into what I do. So if I'm somewhere, I'll probably have coffee because it's like, I don't really want their tea. It's like,
your tea is the best. Yeah, I can see that. You're like, I can't.
Yeah, or they like just have something that's just different than because when I'm near my studio, I can make whatever I want, right? I could just pull, whip it together. So
yeah.
But anyway, breakfast, of course. But then I am a big meditator. I'm just really into meditation. I have been for the last 3-4 years, daily. And I actually, the thing that was my breakthrough for meditation, I had a spiritual mentor that told me, because I would sit and I would sometimes feel like I was dizzy, which is kind of weird. Yep. And she said, you don't have to sit. You don't have to do anything. You can do whatever you want. So she said, just lay down. Grab a blanket if you're cold, but just lay down and do it somewhere that you don't sleep, so you have kind of a different vibe. And that really opened that up for me. So I do a half an hour meditation every morning, get answers to all my questions that I need answered for the day. Yep. And then in the evening, I read a lot. I've mentioned that like 400 times. So yes, I read a lot, but I journal in the evenings. So I always try to. Are you familiar with Morning Pages by Julia Cameron? Well, I love you, Julia Cameron, but I just cannot get through Morning Pages. I'm just not a great morning person, so I do evening pages. So I always try to do one page and just kind of vent out what's going on in my mind, or if there's something that I've really been thinking about and it's bugging me, or if someone did something that day that I just kind of replay in my head. I'm prone to do that.
Yeah, me too.
Like rethink, like, like, did I really show up in the right way in that moment? Or like, it's kind of a jerk. And why did I get so upset with that person? So I use journaling as a way to kind of just clear the slate on that, maybe get some clarity into what actually happened there.
Yeah.
I often too run into great journaling prompts or, just really powerful questions like the ones I shared earlier. And I put those in my journal, like just on a blank page. So they're kind of there as like a little spiritual exercise waiting for me. So sometimes if I have more time or if I'm just feeling called, I'll look through this and see if there's something that I want to work on.
Beautiful.
So that's my kind of end. And I've always been a huge herbal tea person, like from the beginning. Definitely, that's probably the Dutch influence, Dutch folk like fruit teas and mint and that kind of thing. So I always have, some kind of tea in the evening. I rotate. I pull from what I'm feeling called to in the moment. But
yeah, that's a great practice. Love booking. Oh my God, I took a lot of notes. I was like, oh, that's good. I like the laying down during meditation in the morning because you're still tired. You're like, dude, I don't really want to be up yet, but I'm up because I'm going to get up. And so to just kind of what you said too with morning pages, like I'm going to do evening pages. Like everybody listening, just turn the practices on their head and make them work for you. That's the point. Just make it a practice. You can only practice if you actually practice. So get out there and practice. Oh my gosh, Andy. Final question for you. This has been extraordinary. What's the gutsiest move you've ever made, and how does it inspire your life and work today?
Well, for me, Jenny, I love that you ended this question. I love powerful questions, and it's a very powerful question. For me, it was really taking the leap into the unknown. And when I see in that was believing before I was seeing. There's this old silly cliche, I'll believe it when I see it, but actually the reality, I believe, is the opposite, in that you'll see it when you believe it. And so when I believed that I was responsible enough to control my future, that I could be successful as a creator, that I was capable of a lot more than I would be in a box in a building somewhere. That's when things manifested for me. Help manifested. People, opportunities, experiences, ideas that helped me on all of those steps. And I had that long journey, but I think that every one of those steps enabled me to be the person I am and the success that I am now. So I don't lament them. I don't feel bad for them. I'm grateful for all of them. But the key in every stage was knowing that I could do it. I was good enough. I was smart enough. I was talented enough. I was enough to do those things. And I have to keep reminding myself of that. I am grateful now that I have a community of people that remind me and tell me and thank me for what I do. But that's the gutsy thing. That's the thing that takes a lot of nerve as a creative entrepreneur, is knowing that you have a capability that the world needs and saying, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I believe it. I believe it. And then I'll see it.
Yeah, it's so absolutely crucial. I just, flashing lights around that statement. That whole piece that you said, it was just like my body went to a place of calm. I felt it was like spirit. Basically, spirit was speaking through you during that moment. Like, that's what I know when I have these interviews. That's why I love doing them. And I'm excited for you getting into this space too with podcasting. You're going to have the message that needs to get delivered to you and to your audience from your guests. And, right on. All you listeners, freaking flashing lights around that. You'll see it when you believe it. Don't be around those cynical people who say, well, I'll believe it when I see it, because that's the way the majority of the world works. It's crap. It's a load of crap. Get away. Run, 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 run. You'll see it when you believe it. It does take a tremendous amount of courage. That's why this movement, this podcast, my book is called Get Gutsy, because if you want to go out and live and have an extraordinary life between that point of birth and that point of death, you must follow that. You'll see it when you believe it. Andy, thank you so much for being here. Everybody go check out plumdeluxe.com. We will have that linked up on our show notes page, jennyfennig.com. You can just put Andy in the search bar. This episode will come up, and go drink some tea. I mean, seriously, especially all you coffee drinkers, just try it. Just try it. It's like, just try it. I think you'll like it. What's your favorite tea that you sell? Is that like asking your favorite child? Like who your favorite child is?
It is like asking my favorite child. I sell a hazelnut tea that coffee people like. I have a good track record with converting coffee people. It's called Oregon Breakfast. Okay. I would probably say I have a special place. I have a tea called the Reading Nook tea, and that's the first tea I ever made. Ooh. And that has a special place in my heart.
Because you love reading, and then you've got your fired up librarians. Yeah,
and it was my first recipe, so
it's like your first child.
Yeah, something special about that. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, this has been fantastic. All you gorgeous listeners out there, I know you've gotten a lot of gems from this episode. What one action will you take today as a result of listening to this episode of Get Gutsy, listening to Andy Hayes, the creator of Plum Deluxe Teas, just share his wisdom, his journey with you. Go out and do it. This is Jenny Fennig sending you so much love, light, and faith as you get gutsy. I will see you next time.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Get Gutsy with Jenny Fennig. Gutsy leaders unite and ignite.
This episode of Get Gutsy was brought to you by Get Gutsy Coach Training School. This is the program teaching the future generation of coaches how to make a difference and a great living. So if you haven't figured it out by now, I have built my business around this calling podcast is based on, my book is based on that. The courses and programs that I've developed over the years have really allowed this calling of me being a coach to get unleashed in the world in such a massive way. And I am able to be a confident coach because I went through coach training. I learned what it took to be strong and supportive for my clients, and also how to be a phenomenal entrepreneur, a smart marketer, and a savvy business owner. And I realized that there was a total gap in the market for those of you out there who want to train under a successful coach, a successful entrepreneur, someone who walks her talk, is able to provide that gorgeous sacred container for you to claim your expertise and gifts, for you to package up the gorgeous value that you add to the world, and for you to be able to create a lifestyle that is beyond your wildest dreams, for you to be able to help as many people as you care to during this lifetime. And truly, being a coach is just, it's completely epic. So we are in the throes of our enrollment period for Coach Training School. I invite you to check it out. It is going to be absolutely extraordinary. We'd love to serve you in Coach Training School. Come on over and check it out. It teaches you exactly what you need to know now to truly make it as a coach, and you will not find anything in the market quite like this or at such a huge value. Come check us out, coachtrainingschool.com. That's coachtrainingschool.com. Gutsy coaches unite.